Thank you for staying with me here. Now I would like to talk to you about the events that occurred on Tuesday, March 31st, 2026. My daughter and her abuser took the babies somewhere for the morning. They got home shortly before nap time. And when they came into the house, I came out of my office that's in the garage, and we were standing in the room I'm at, where the fat bastard proceeded to yell at my daughter and ask her why there were these chairs in the living room, the toddler chairs that Jetty likes. He yelled at my daughter and said, "Why are there always all these fucking toys laying around?" Keep in mind, I've bought every single one of them. He then tells my daughter to pick this shit up and turns his lazy, fat ass and goes in to his bedroom. I walk to my office, speechless. But I can't stay. I can't sit there. So I come back in and I start picking up the chairs. My daughter's making their lunch. Fat bastard is still in his room. And I start picking up the chairs. And Papa helps me. And I'm getting angrier. And I'm getting more Mama Bear-like. And I go to my office. At this stage, I'm slamming doors. I'm just slamming doors, not knowing what to do. And I've decided we need a family meeting. So I go back in the house and I say to my daughter, we need to have a family meeting. Maybe I was yelling it. Don't know. Don't remember. Can't tell you my actual tone. But I asked her, so we need to have a family meeting. And she goes, what for? I say, because I don't like the way your husband talks to you. That's right. My first finally had enough. Wasn't how they treated my husband. Wasn't how they treated me. Wasn't how they treated my grandbabies. But how he was treating my daughter. She then proceeds to say that, like, have the meeting now. And I say, no, we can have the meeting when the twins take a nap. She calls her lazy fat bastard husband out of his room throne and says that my mother wants to have a meeting because she doesn't like the way you talk to me. Once again, she says, we're going to have the meeting now. We're not going to wait until the twins lay down, because that's what I wanted to have happen, so I could maybe not so calmly jot down a few things I wanted to address. I didn't get that opportunity because she wanted to have the meeting now. So we had the meeting, and by that I mean, I said, I don't like the way he talks to you. At which time they both exploded on me and my husband. They said that I treat my daughter like a slave. Let that think in, let that sink into you, to all of us who may have past family history around that. I paid someone $800 a week. All they were asked to do was pay the electric bill. And I can tell you guys later about that, like future videos. That's it. That's all they had to do. I already covered what my daughter had to do for me, yet I treated her like a slave. My daughter's abuser, who she willingly picked and married, told me that I was a bad grandma. Perhaps I am, because I let this happen under my roof. And to that, I have asked so much forgiveness from my Heavenly Father, and I hope to one day be able to ask my grandbabies. But they called me a bad grandma. And I know in my heart, in the godly love that I have for my daughter and my son and my grandchildren, that I love them the way that God wants me to love them. I am guilty of putting my children first, but I repented of that a long time ago. After I was called a bad grandma, I not so smoothly and calmly told my daughter she was fired. Fired. I think Cat in the Hat, there's that guy. Fired. Yep. It was a long time coming, let's be honest. To then, at that point, not one time did I say they were kicked out. Not one time did I say you got to get the heck out of Dodge. But my daughter's abuser said, we're leaving. You will never see your grandbabies, I don't know how, grandbabies, them again. Through the course of more arguing, my daughter, right in front of me, with a backpack full, like a diaper bag backpack, proceeded to pick up both of her children in front of me and said, you will never see them again. We're leaving. And my words were, then get up on out of here. Probably said a lot of cuss words too. I don't know. One thing I do know is I didn't go to jail. I did good. After that, during that course, my daughter's abuser packed up all of his stuff, very few items of my daughter's, and left all the baby's toys, clothing, comfort, their comfort animals, the sleep animals that they have had since at least 6 months old, that I recall. They left it all behind. They've since sent us text messages that said they didn't want anything to do with that stuff because I bought it. Now, mind you, that fat bastard and my piece of shit daughter drove off in the Tahoe I gave them. He took other things I gave him, but he left behind his children's safety, their belongings, and their joy. That's diabolical. In fact, I have proof. I had to send my daughter a text message saying to her around 7 o'clock that night, are you going to come over and get their bedding and stuff? She did. She ran her mouth. I ran my mouth. Pretty sure I called her white trash even. If that's not this, I don't know what is. A couple days later, when I was in their room, I found that they left behind one of the Rocky stuffed animals. My grandbabies each have one of these. Since the day they were born, my chocolate lab looked after them. He passed away in November, on November 25th of 2025. They left behind one of their comforts, one of their safety, one of their nighttime animals. I have photos with Sophia bringing hers into TJ Maxx. They uprooted their entire life because I was finally talking about how Jesse talked to our daughter. He packed up large amounts of guns, all on our outside cameras, though hidden under a blanket. He brought up during the course of it how I called the cops on him when he first came around. My daughter brought up how I smacked her in middle school. Let's talk about that one. My daughter during middle school would go to her father's every other weekend. He was involved up until it became inconvenient. Like Lizzo said, why men great till they gotta be great? But he did. He attended more school functions, helped her with her homework, did things I didn't do because I worked so many hours. She would come home on those Sundays and she would just be a raging bitch. I'm sure some of you have middle school daughters like that. If you don't, good for you. Well, I'd had enough. I told her to stop. She didn't. She went off on her brother about something, and I smacked her face. She proceeded, and I let her, to call her father. He whipped right over, come storming up, didn't say a word to me, took her, and walked and drove away. I looked at my husband, and I said, they're going to the police. Please take our son, because I don't want him seeing me being arrested. The Marion Police Department police officer came to the door and started asking me questions. And I said, sir, if you're going to arrest me, will you please do it now? And I will answer your questions down at the precinct. And he said, oh no, Miss Sprinkle, you didn't do anything wrong. And I said, I know I didn't. He told me that Mr. Blevins and my daughter came to the precinct to say that I hit her. She was sobbing the crocodilest of tears that only a middle school girl could do. And he pulled her to the side and he asked her to smack his arm as hard as I smacked her. She did. And he looked at his arm and it was red. And he said, there's no way your mother smacked you that hard because there would be a mark on your face. He said the tears dried instantly. However, when my daughter brought that up on March 31st, and I told her that the police already said that I wasn't in, and she's like, yeah, that's the same police department that has officers that beat their wives. How does she even know that? I didn't even know that. Don't even know. She brought up how when they abruptly left that first time, that we put her stuff in trash bags to return it. She brought up how when she was depressed, that I told her about my 3 suicide attempts. I will tell you guys that when she was depressed, I got her professional help. I didn't just pray about it. I did try to use my example, what I had gone through, to show her that there's always hope. They continued to call Papa lazy. At one point, Papa even tried to say, when they were talking about the slave thing, that we pay her $800 a week. Her response was, I don't get paid that amount. They take taxes out of it. You guys, this is all the God's truth. This is why I believe it is mental abuse. At one point, on March 31st, Jesse told me I wasn't even a Christian. Not sure how Romans 9, 8, 9, and 10. Not really sure how what just has transpired in my house and the godly love I have sown and God's word says will return to me. Not sure how that makes me not a Christian, but it just shows you his level of thinking. About a year ago, they kept leaving the lights on and the back door open with the air conditioner on. And it irritated me. But I was hostage here. I was afraid to say anything. I was afraid. The 2-year thing, the way they were acting. So I thought, well, how about I asked them to pay the electric bill? Prior to that, they didn't pay a thing. They said, sure. My daughter said, sure. No problem. I knew you'd probably blah, blah, want that. I was like, awesome. Thank you. And y'all know what happened? They started turning lights off. The air conditioner went from 68, 69 to 74 degrees. Accomplished what I wanted. My husband wasn't happy, but we had window air conditioners in my office in our bedroom. I said, it's their thermostat, it's their electric bill. On March 31st, that fat bastard stood in my house after I work 50 to 60 hour weeks, telling me that he paid my bills. We have that in text message. See the website. They brought up how they buy all the meat and that I needed to pull up my Sam's Club to see that they buy all the meat. Yes, they buy their chicken and their pork that they want. Just saying, I'm a beef person. I like my steaks. I like my hamburgers. Chicken is what I eat when I'm on a diet. Pork is what you put on a grill and barbecue. If I want to eat chicken, same thing. Otherwise, it's dry. That's my preference. That was not my daughter's preference. She evidently likes large, lumpy, white, dry ass meat. This man got my daughter to believe I am evil. My husband and I invested our time, our love, our resources into my daughter and her family. Yet, that abuser was able to convince her we were evil and that he was right. At one point during the argument, he was saying I was a bad grandma because I didn't ask to just have days off, take the kids places. Keep in mind, they live with us. I get squishy time all the time. Have a bad day, have a bad conference call, just because it's the top of the hour and I'm stretching, going to the bathroom. I would come into my house, maybe 3 to 5 minutes max. Squishy time, kissy, 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 go back to my office. That's what I did. But yet, my daughter's abuser said I was a bad grandma because I did not ask to have more days with them. In fact, he said to me, they needed a day off. He stood in front of me, not even a foot away from me, calling me a bad grandma, telling me that they needed a day off. So I asked him, from what? That abuser picked up my grandson, held him up like the Lion King, and said, from this. I didn't go to jail on Tuesday, March 31st. I did good. Now after the fat, lazy, piece of shit bastard loaded up his stuff, his possessions, into the car and left, we didn't know what to do. We had nothing. I didn't think we had any. I'm like, this is bad. Oh, I prayed. I did what all of us good moms do and said my prayer. People were telling me she'll come around, but something was like this. There's like, I had gone in and I'd seen the crib. God had recalled the bruises to my mind. Even at one point, I hadn't added in the nap times and the timeouts when I just had text them, rage texts. Like I said, I admit everything I've done. I was still compiling the information. I was praying to my Heavenly Father one night, and I was trying to reason with myself about what's the worst thing that could happen. I literally said, some bruises and broken bones. And as soon as that came out, I realized that I had just rationalized bruises and broken bones when it came to my grandbabies. That's when I started really rage texting, demanding the babies get help. All I asked out of my daughter and her abuser at first was that the babies get the medical help they needed to meet their milestones, and we be able to see the grandbabies. This was all before I really started researching the cribs, what neglect and the long times left in cribs. Yet they refused. And it bothered my soul. Why was it such a big deal to take the babies to the doctor? Hoping DCF can figure that one out. I sent emails. I made phone calls to people. We'll talk about that soon. At one point, I even found my daughter's suicide note. I would be in my office, and I would remember all the datelines that I would see, and the grandparents went through, and the parents, what the parents went through. Not as dramatic. I remembered the Love and Hip Hops and the Real Housewives that I would watch, and where I would say, this is a woman who needs help. And I would make sure my daughter knew she was loved and didn't need to take the abuse of a cheating man, or worse. I sat around and I watched Stevie J abuse women. And I wanted to tell them, you don't have to take this from a man. That is not love. But that wasn't my place. I'm not part of their community. I need to stay in my lane. It's what I've always done. But I was reminded of how I sat there for years saying, I wouldn't do it like that. I would do this, as if I know better. How no man was gonna sit there. I was never gonna be caught off guard, not know how to pay something, not know what's going on, not be surprised if the feds show up because I didn't pay my taxes. None of that. I prided myself. No man ever got one over on me. until my daughter brought her abuser into my life. I called the ATF, or not called, I went online and submitted an ATF tip line. I don't like guns. I believe in your right to carry, to bear arms. I don't like them, but I believe as a libertarian, if the government owns it, you should be able to own it too. However, I believe we have gun laws for a reason. My daughter's abuser has bragged about buying guns, gun parts to make guns. I know that he has a medical registered marijuana card. I have one too. But I also know that he has registered guns and a concealed carry permit. At one point when I was rage texting, I offered him $10,000 to take a lie detector test. You can see online the questions that I was going to ask him. All he had to do was take a lie detector test. Because keep in mind, at this point, I still wasn't sure if this was really DCF or just really shitty parenting. I will tell you guys that not even an hour after I did the ATF hotline, I know for a fact he was at gun pawn shops. Did God tell me, lead me to do the ATF tip? I don't know. I'm not claiming he did. All I know is I've been praying and moving, because faith without works is dead. I rage text and I rage text, begging them to call the popo. Begging, because if they called on me, then I could show them the crib. I could show them what I have without it being something that they come back and say, no, I'm sorry, that's not grounds. And then I've blown up my entire relationship with my daughter. All I was ever really asking was that the twins, my grandbabies, get help. This one I have actually titled, Us Grandparents Were Emotionally Abused. But this isn't about me. I just want you guys to understand that this is why I consider it mental abuse. We invested everything into our daughter's family. We moved our stuff into 2 different storage units to make room for her family. I worked countless hours to provide for her family financially. Don't get me wrong. She never asked me to buy a toy. She never asked me to buy their clothes. She didn't ask me to buy the babies a single thing. I did it because I wanted to, because I love them, because I take pride in being a Proverbs 31 wife, mother, and now grandma. Everything I did was out of love for my daughter and my grandbabies. I will take any lie detector test. I'm pretty much showing I will blow up my entire world. I will live in a cardboard box to make sure my grandbabies and my daughter get the help they need. My grandbabies are being abused by my daughter and her chosen partner. They removed their children from a safe, loving home to cover up their neglect. I am looking and asking any lawyer, doctor, nurse, counselor, especially psychiatrist, investigative reporter, government officials, and anyone else who is in the power to help me help them, please, please. I've done what I can do. Prior to going to DCF, I reached out to anyone who could help get my daughter and grandbabies help. I asked Alex, Jesse's brother, to come forward, as he knows about the early bedtimes and not getting up until after 8 a.m. Him, CJ, and my daughter's abuser would sit at my house about once a month playing their little magic little Dungeons and Dragons game. They saw it. They have children themselves. They know the milestones. They know the twins. We're not meeting them. I'm willing to bet that they both had conversations with their wives talking about it. I went to Alex's wife and asked her to help me. She remained quiet. We'll talk about that. No one responded to help me. The one person that did told me to stop contacting them, but she did say and planted in my heart that I actually was required to report them to DCF. I still didn't do it. Still wasn't sure. I have rage text my daughter, her abuser, and his mother. No one will look at the proof I have. So I've uploaded it to my website, supersprinkle.com. I'm tearing down my entire company to use the resources that I have to show the proof and to get my grandbabies help. Because at the end of the day, my company, everything I've built, everything I own, who I am, none of it matters if my family isn't part of it. I have here a call log of the people that I reached out to. How I went to Maureen Johns, Ron Johns, her husband, Ron, Savannah, Alex's wife, my daughter's father. How I sought guidance, and they said when it came to DCF, this is pretty much a he said, she said, so that I should just probably just pray and go quietly, for lack of any other word. And they meant well, and that is normal advice if not dealing with diabolical evilness. After driving around and sending the text messages to Savannah, where they were staying, Alex's house, we went over there. And I had my husband go up to the door and ring it. There was no vehicles in. And I recorded it. Then we drove around I got a call from a 740 number I'm from Ohio, OH, and I didn't know. We drove over. They were literally right in front of us. Then as they were getting out of their vehicle, I took out my camera. I went over with my daughter's abuser, how he left my babies to bed rot in those cribs. His response was, "Where's your proof?" This is my proof. Now, I just want to lightly cover DCF. I contacted DCF. Once they trespassed me. I go into that later, another time. Just don't go up on the door and knock if you're stalking somebody, people. Once they trespassed me, that was what I needed. Once they involved the Lake County Sheriff, though, who came into my house and told me when I showed him the crib that was not abuse. He wasn't seeing any abuse. There was nothing he could do. He asked if he made any threats. We said yes. He said when. We told him March 31st that he threatened us. And he's like, and you're just now, a week later? I'm not afraid of Jesse, so I see that. But when I showed him the crib and said, can't you call DCF? He's like, no, I don't see any abuse. That Lake County Sheriff officer was more offended by the smell of the marijuana smoke that I had just had, trying to calm my nerves from my interaction from that bastard that my daughter chose, than he was by the side of the crib. I beg all of you to go on and see the crib. See what that man saw and how he walked out my door and said that I have been trespassed and that I'm the problem. DCF doesn't care about the bruises because I failed to report. They also told me yesterday, on April 11th, that the crib doesn't matter when we asked if we could send them the photos. Because once again, nobody's come out and talked to us or asked us for anything like that. They told us that it doesn't matter about the crib because the danger is over. Because the parents don't live there anymore. All DCF cares about is the medical neglect and milestones missed. So that's right. Parents can just move and DCF really can't do anything. We've called and provided updates to the hotline multiple times. We've called the non-urgent number, never got through. We're talking 70 some minutes of waiting and waiting, thinking we were doing the right thing, for only to, at the end of the day, disconnect and say, sorry, we're closed. The system is broken. DCF can't be the answer for everything. And what they do, they need more trained professionals. They need better pay. They need the ability to do their jobs. Because I've just found out they really have no actual authority. What? And above all else, DCF cannot help with emotional and mental abuse. Now, I'm done staying quiet. I've covered how my daughter's dad Donnie Blevins was part of the problem. How Danny's daddy issues allowed her abuser to come into her life. Her father, my ex-husband, would sit around bad-mouthing me, this per Danny, along with his parents, in front of my daughter when she was growing up. Donnie got his parents, my daughter's grandparents, to stop talking to her. That is emotional abuse. My dad used the Bible to control me as a child. That is religious emotional abuse. I have sat here lately during the time when my daughter didn't talk to me, and I said, well, if she doesn't want my love, I will find someone that does. And I found a family that was doing the work of God in the foster care system. And I put my love, my time, and my money into that family because my daughter didn't want my love. And during that time, I saw the system fail those children. I saw the system give back 3 babies to a dad who had not been rehabilitated, but because there was no other options. I saw a little boy's light in his eyes fade because his father beat him with a belt when he got back into his care. And I couldn't do anything but pray. I even at one point, prior to my daughter coming back into my life, prayed. Was going to try to take in those 3 foster cares. So, because my friend's position had changed in some things, and the system was forcing some things. But God told me no. A few months later, my daughter re-entered my life, pregnant with twins, and needed me. She was my primary responsibility. I've watched Dateline. I've seen the parents, the wedding photographer who had to quit his livelihood because his wife sobs because their daughter was killed. I've also sat around and watched Amber's mom go through unimaginable heartache, but turn it in to helping others. I'm done being quiet. It's time for me to start snatching souls. I'm asking you how I can make sure every parent knows that what was done to my grandchildren's crib is illegal and abuse. How can I make sure that every parent knows that a toddler should never, ever spend 16 and a half hours in a crib, abandoned, frightened, and alone? Thank God my babies had each other. How can I do my part? No one would listen to me. So now I'm asking all of you to listen. Kind of think of the movie again, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I am Asim. Join me. I am not one of you, but I fight. Legally, I fight. I fight for our children and our communities. I fight for my family. Will you please join me in the fight Now, there may be some Christians who will take offense to this Led Zeppelin jacket. But this is a mama bear who wants to talk directly. One, I'm wearing this because this is my daughter's favorite band. And I'm also wearing it because it feels kind of military-like. Because I have had enough. Now, this message is for Maureen Johns, Jesse's mother. She, after I reached out to her, after I told her, you need to give me my phone. After I told her, actually I don't need that anymore. I sent her a message on the 4th at 21:06 asking for her to help. Hello, Maureen. This is Danny's mom, Christina. I am sorry to be reaching out to you like this, but I am very concerned about Danny and the baby's safety. Please understand that I love your son, but he has been going through some very dark stuff. On Tuesday, he went off on Danny and the babies, more so than normal, and when I tried to step in, he lost it. He threatened my husband and me even. I wanted to make sure that the babies are okay and that Jesse gets the anger management he needs. My biggest concern is that Jesse has started slamming Jedrick around and getting very short-tempered with even Danny. I tried talking to Danny about it, but then I just become the enemy. I assure you that I am not some monster any more than you are the monster your son has claimed. The issue is both Jesse and Danny are playing games with each other that they are taking out on the babies. I am wanting to make sure my daughter and grandchildren are safe and getting the help they need. Please, I beg you to talk to Jesse and see through his lies and insist once and for all that he take accountability for his actions and get help. He blamed you for everything and has now turned it on me because I couldn't stay quiet any longer. I'm so sorry. I have no idea how to handle something like this. My name and my phone number. That woman remained quiet. I sent her rage texts. I sent her texts calling her a bad mom. If she's not, then what is? I showed her that she is required by law to turn her son in because she's a registered nurse with hospice in the local area. She never responded until yesterday. Yesterday at 14:41, Maureen unblocked me from Facebook, stating the following: I am requesting you discontinue your contact with me and my family. If you continue to threaten me, my family, and any extended family, I will be forced to take legal action. Please be aware that your professional information is also available to the public. Thank you. Bring it on, bitch. I am showing I will blow up my entire world for my child. Will you? But then again, you caused this. You abused your son. Everything I'm about to say came from your son's mouth. I'll take a lie detector test to his lie detector test any day. You abused him, or at least neglected him. Your sister had to raise him. The only skill set that lazy fucking bastard has is cooking. He taught himself how to cook, otherwise he would have starved. But he's so lazy, he can't even take that skill set and provide for his family. He's now continuing the cycle of abuse on my daughter and my grandbabies. Now, I admit, I sent rage texts calling you out for abusing your son. I was trying to get you to step up and do the right thing. You did not. Now we get to talk about who the bad grandma really is. You were in my grandbaby's lives for 6 months. And then you walked out of their life for over 2 years. Your son didn't unblock your number until March 31st. You made no attempt to see those babies. In December of 2023, I paid for you and your husband, who didn't do anything either when I reached out to him, Ron Johns. I paid for you guys to go to Gaylord Resorts for Christmas 2023. You broke bread with me. I told you when you were thanking me that I was happy to do this for my grandbabies because I wanted them to have both sets of grandparents in their lives for the holidays, just like I had as a child. Guys, go to my website for photos of this cunt at Gaylord's. Maureen told me yesterday that she's got my professional contact information. Where do you think I got the ability to do what I'm doing now? Since 2000, April of 2005, I've worked in the transportation business. I started out as a temp, making $12 an hour. I have no skill set. I have no college degree. But I know how to get shit done. I know how to collect an aging. I know how to find a problem. I know how to fix a problem. But at the end, if this blows up my professional career, it was the end of that season. and I'm okay with it. I was not trained in any form to see neglect and abuse, but you were. I have since realized that I too broke the law, that I am a mandated to report this. And eventually, not as fast as I should, I've done the right thing by my grandbabies. Were you? You walked out of their lives for over 2 years. That's abuse. My fault is that seeing what I thought was good out of your bastard son and my daughter. Yours is knowing you caused this and not doing anything about it. You remain silent. You are helping this evilness infest into my daughter and my grandbaby's lives, not me. I blame the twins having a twin talk on why their speech was that way. I have no excuse. I did that. I'm just saying, I at least, I'm like, I knew there was a problem. Whereas you, Maureen, you haven't been around them in over 2 years. But you do have grandchildren, a granddaughter you're around often, Alex's daughter. You know they were neglected and abused. And you did nothing. I had to make the hard choice to put my grandbabies above my daughter. Maureen did not. And pursuant to Florida law 39.205, I believe that is a fine and punishable by jail time because you are a registered nurse in the state of Florida. Jesse had even asked you to make amends, wanted a relationship with you within the first year, but you blocked him. All he asked you to do was to apologize to my daughter, his wife. But you couldn't do it. You couldn't do that to have your grandbabies, my grandbabies in your life. You can't even be there for Alex's daughter. He's told us about how you've promised to take care of her, but when they need you on certain days, you're just poof, gone. At one point, I even told my daughter that if you came to the door to see those babies, I was going to let you in. You were their grandparent. That's what I told my daughter. Her words were, she won't, and you never fucking did. You committed grandparent abuse. You abused your sons. You neglected them. You released them into society as damaged boys. Your son called me a bad grandma. My daughter, when she came back around, like I said, bawled her eyes out, asking me why I didn't come and save her from you. Now, to authority. I don't claim to know anything. I'm learning as I go here. But I ask the people who are in charge, who know way more than I, if this doesn't fall under Florida law 39.205, what does? To the Florida governing boards, I found that name on Google. Why would this not apply in this case? Florida Statute 39.205 states, makes it a third-degree felony for any person required by law to report known or suspected child abuse, abandonment, or neglect to knowingly and willfully fail to do so. It's also criminalized preventing someone else from reporting and carries penalties for willfully making false reports or releasing confidential information. What are we doing here, Maureen? I'm guilty of certain things. Ignorance. That's my primary one. Maureen, you have fucked up your little boy. You who were too cheap to buy the simplest package. You caused this. You hurt your son because hurt boys grow up to hurt boys. You did this. Jesse is a product of your abuse. By the way, they left all their stuff here, and we have a text message where they said they abandoned it, and we gave them till yesterday, or till Friday. It's still here. But any of you guys taking offense to any of this, I'm using what I have as my resources. You caused your son pain, and you couldn't admit it. You've spent his entire life gaslighting him, lying to him, telling him what he knows happened didn't happen. Except your son is walking proof. Actually, all three of your boys are walking proof that you fucking failed at the most important calling. Now, your son is causing my daughter pain, and I have to clean up the mess you made. And none of this is slander, because your son said everything. And if you come for me, get a lawyer, because we're going to do lie detector tests. I know I'm telling the truth. This is who you have proven to be. You have been found measured. You have been found weighed. And you have been found lacking. To Maureen and her offspring that has abused my daughter and grandbabies, please know that I have channeled my inner 50 Cent, and I'm going to do everything legally I can do to ensure that your life is not comfortable, especially until you acknowledge your wrongs, because we cannot fix what we do not acknowledge. I will not break the law, but I will hold you accountable for what you've done. In fact, at 50 Cent, would you please teach me some of your ways and help join my fight? We could probably take some attention off the Harrises for a few minutes. If you'd like to help me, please. Thank you. Maureen Johns, you're a fraud. You're fake. You'd rather sit and gamble than do anything with your life, you're a miserable piece of shit that raised miserable piece of shits. Do better. That's good for now.